Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Strategic Planning Committee here in the Council Chamber on Tuesday, the 5th of March. Apologies for absence. Have we had any apologies for absence today?
Yes, Chair, I've received apologies from Councillor Renner Thompson.
Just fine, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. Minutes of the Strategic Planning Committee held on the 2nd of January have been circulated. Are members happy that these are a true record? Yes, all in favour? Thank you. Have any members got any disclosures of interest they wish to declare? No disclosures of interest. Thank you. So we now go on to determination of planning applications. We only have one before us this afternoon. Item 5 relating to Ashington has been withdrawn. For those that haven't been to a strategic planning committee before, I'll just briefly go through procedure. Obviously, I welcome the members and the public watching on live stream TV. As chair, I introduce the item, ask members if they've seen the site visit videos. I then ask the planning officer to present his report with any updates, any changes to the recommendations. We then have a public speaking slot, 5 minutes for objectors, up to 5 minutes for a local member, parish councillor, county councillor, and then 5 minutes for an applicant or supporter. We then have committee members' questions to the planning officer, and then we carry out the debate, asking for a proposal, that proposal to be seconded, and then the debate continues, and then a vote at the end of our deliberations by the committee. So, ladies and gentlemen, the item before us this afternoon is on page 39. It's a reserved matters application for the appearance, the landscaping, layout and scale for 480 dwellings of the granted planning permission. It's land south and southeast of the college, James Cabot Spence College, on Acklington Road, Amble. And our planning officer this afternoon, who's going to take us through this application, is John Sharp. John, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. There we go. Members will hopefully have had sight of the addendum report that was circulated yesterday. In case anyone hasn't, the main points relate to what was an outstanding issue with drainage, whereby the LLFA were not happy with proposals to use a partially pumped drainage system. Following further discussions, they have now removed their objections to the proposal subject to additional conditions. When the officer report was published, a final response had not been received from Highways, specifically in respect of the adoption of internal roads. HDM have now confirmed that their requirements are either covered by conditions on the outline permission or have been addressed on the submitted plans. And whilst the adoption of the site would be preferred, there are no concerns regarding the proposed layout from a highway safety point of view. Finally, in terms of updates, an additional representation was received from a member of the public this morning, raising concerns about the development having a single access point onto Acklington Road and the problems that that's likely to cause when taken together with other developments in the immediate area. It is worth noting at this point that access to the site was agreed at outline stage and is not therefore one of the reserved matters to be considered as part of this application. So, a little potted history. The outline planning permission was granted with all matters except for access reserved for the construction of up to 500 houses on this site in March 2022. The outline application originally came before members in July 2017 when it was deferred for a member site visit. The application was then considered again in September 2017 when it was resolved to grant permission subject to an S106 agreement and an additional condition in respect of the provision of a link road through to the 1068 at the Percy Road roundabout. The application returned to committee a third time in December 2018 when it was resolved to remove that condition, and again in October 21 to highlight changes to the NPPF and the emergence of the local plan at that time. Following the sale of the site to the current applicant, negotiations have taken place with them and a 106 agreement was signed and the application approved at the end of March 22. The principle of development on the site and the access to it have therefore been established. The site was accounted for in the preparation of the local plan and was included within the Amble settlement boundaries such that the residential development on this site is in accordance with the local plan's settlement strategy. Just to take you through some of the slides. The site, which is approximately 25 hectares, is currently in agricultural use, located to the southwest edge of the town bordering the school site, which you can see just to the north there. And existing housing to the north as well, the Persimmon development that was built just a couple of years or so ago. To the countryside, open countryside, sorry, to the south and west. This rather hastily drawn site boundary on a clip from Google Maps just gives you an aerial overview of where the site is. That is the proposed site layout, and then a different version of the site layout just showing the open space provision within the site. So onto housing mix and affordable dwellings as set out in the officer report. The housing mix and affordables were set out at outline stage to include 15% affordable housing on site. That's 67% affordable rent, 33% intermediate home ownership models, shared ownership, discount market value. So you can see the breakdown here. The council's affordable housing officer is content with the proposed mix. However, there is no confirmation at this stage as to who the provider would be. As mentioned in the addendum report, although there is no requirement to do so arising from the outline approval, the applicant has also included a number of M42 compliant house types so that the application is in accordance with policy HOW 11 of the local plan. A little bit about Tantallon Homes, and we'll move on then to the house types and site photos. The following shows a selection. Tantallon Homes, basically a local company who have taken on the site, worked with local architects to develop a bespoke scheme, following further small-scale developments that they've produced in Netherton and Long Framlington. The following just showing a selection of street scenes and a selection of the proposed house types as well. There's quite a few. There we go. And then just some pictures of the site. This one looking northeast towards the school. Again, looking towards the school. This is from the access point. Looking southeast towards Hope Farm. And then northeast towards the new houses on Norham Drive. And down the main road, looking in towards Amble. So, to come back to the access and highways points as noted earlier, access has been a particular concern and has been a common theme in the public representations received. particularly the impact of having single access onto the Accrington Road. The applicant has confirmed that access via the Percy Park roundabout would not be possible at this stage, however, due to land ownership issues, cost implications, and also the fact that having a single access onto Accrington Road was found to be technically acceptable and or could be mitigated for. In the event, including a new access at a res matter stage would not fall within the ambit of the outline application anyway. The proposed site plan is considered to be broadly in keeping with what was agreed at outline stage and is therefore acceptable. Concerns regarding the impact on the local road network are noted, particularly when considering ongoing developments elsewhere and the impending redevelopment of the school site. HDM have confirmed that the transport assessment that was submitted with the application is robust, as those developments currently ongoing in the area were taken into account in that assessment. Excuse me. Due to the scale of the application, we consulted Active Travel England. I understand it was the first consultation that they received after they were established in 2020. The applicant has done quite a lot in respect of active travel on this development. The site includes a 3-metre wide cycleway running through the site, linking up with the large area of green space to the south corner. So running all the way through from the access point down through the site into that area of open space. It's also the intention to reinstate the former railway line as a pedestrian cycle route, which I know has been a long-held ambition in the area. The cycleway itself was not a requirement of the outline approval, but the developers worked with us and ATE to include enhanced provision within the site. The improvements to the old railway line are secured through the Section 106 agreement, but it's recognised again that land ownership issues may make this tricky, and the developer has agreed to offer up a commuted sum towards these improvements should it be necessary to do so. One final point to note in respect of sustainable transport is that a bus stop is shown on the proposed plan. That would necessarily be dealt with via a Section 278 agreement if indeed it's required, given the proximity of existing bus stops just outside the entrance to the high school. Connections from the site into the school could also be captured by the 278 process. With regards to drainage, due to levels on the site, it has not been possible to achieve a 100% gravity-fed drainage system. Having said that, it is mostly gravity-fed, and certainly all of the water going into the SUD system is going by gravity. The pumps are only being proposed to lift water from the end of the SUDS train to the outfall. A lot of discussions were had with the LLFA about this. It's proposed to include 2 pumps within the chamber, so that if one fails, the other will be there to take up any slack. Hopefully it won't happen, but in the unlikely event of both pumps failing due to an extreme rain, or during an extreme rainfall event, the water in the SUDS pond would in any event overtop into the watercourse. It's clear that this would be a very exceptional event, and overland flow drawings have been provided by the applicant to demonstrate that any risk would be negligible. This risk is acknowledged, but needs to be balanced against the works that would be required if we were to insist that they achieve a 100% gravity-fed system. Within there is something in the region of 52,000 vehicle movements onto the site in order to regrade it to achieve that. So on balance, the negligible risk is considered to be acceptable over the disruption that would otherwise occur. To conclude then, the proposals before members are acceptable or can be made so via the recommended conditions. Concerns about highways impacts and drainage are noted, however it's been demonstrated that these can be mitigated. It is worth reiterating that the access was agreed through the outline process and is not for reassessment at reserved matters stage. The developer has gone over and above the requirements of the outline permission to present a good, well-connected housing scheme with large areas of open space and a good mix of housing types and sizes. Tantallon Homes are a small house builder who are local to the area. They've used a well-established local architecture firm to develop the house types and the character areas within the proposed development. They offer a different model to the usual volume house builders that we will have seen in the immediate area, and have worked closely with us to achieve an acceptable scheme on this site. On this basis, Chair, the proposals are considered to be acceptable and are therefore recommended for approval by the committee, subject to the conditions set out in the report and an updated Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, we now come to that section that deals with public speaking. We have two public speakers this afternoon on this application. We've got Tom Lloyd objecting to the application, and then we have Jack Oskerby from Pegasus, who is speaking in support of the application. Tom Lloyd, the floor is yours, sir. You have 5 minutes.
5 minutes, thank you. Yes. Thank you. I wasn't aware till you just said the single access is not for negotiation, because that's part of my objection. But I will make the point, because I think it is wrong to be looking at this particular development without also considering the adjacent one on the Hawksley Moorhouse farm that is currently also has outline planning permission. Clause 111 of the current National Planning Policy Framework states development should only be prevented or refused on highways grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety or the residual cumulative impacts on the road networks would be severe. I believe this development has both an unacceptable impact on highway safety and a residual severe cumulative impact on the B6345 Acklington Road and the staggered crossroads where it meets the A1068 at the Mason's Arms. Acklington Road already serves Gloucester Park, the Robson's Way developments, and provides all vehicle access to the existing and JCSC and the Midland Junior Schools. This Hope House Farm development funnels all residential and construction traffic wanting to get to the A1068 or the Amber Shopping Centre or Morrison's Retail Park from 480 houses on top of the 185 currently being built at the Longstone Manor development along this congested road. Can I just remind you, this means they're passing two major schools that will soon cover the full 4 to 18 age range of commuting children. 2, the Amble Welfare Park, playground and skate park, which attract children all year round. 3, the Amble Football Club sports ground, with all the current match day parking problems. 4, 36 homes with drives and that cars reverse in and out of. 5, 36 more homes with no drives and cars parked outside continuously. 6, 7 junctions with residential roads, many of which are cul-de-sacs. 7, 6 bus stops, none of which have a lay-by. And 8, 2 sharp bends on junctions with limited visibility due to parked cars. In addition to all this extra traffic will clog the already busy staggered crossroads with no room for right turn lanes at the Mason's Arms, where the developer's own traffic studies have indicated waiting times in excess of 90 seconds, 52% of generated trips heading south along the A1068. There will inevitably be calls for 4-phase light control that in turn will cause further A1068 congestion and eventually demands for an Amble bypass, which ironically, both this and the Longstone Manor development occupy the previously protected route of. And then to add further problems, the only proposed construction access for this Hope House Farm development is also onto Acklington Road, right in the middle of the westbound bus stop and crossing point about to be installed by the Longstone Manor developer for their residents. This will add at least 10 years of daily heavy vehicles, adding mud, noise and more hazards for both schools and residents alike. How on earth can Northumberland County Council, as a responsible highway and planning authority, claim this is an acceptable impact on highway safety? It might be understandable if there was no alternative, but there is a simple, far safer solution that's already been mentioned. I have been recommending it to NCC planners, NCC highways, to Councillor Jeff Watson, to our MP Anne-Marie Trevelyan, and even to both developers over the last 7 years, with sadly absolutely no response from any of them. My solution is to add a fourth westbound road to the existing three-way Percy Drive roundabout to feed both this and the adjacent Hawksley Moorhouse Farm proposal. A few houses could remain with the Acklington Road access, as I'm not suggesting a through road. The new four-way roundabout could then enable, one, around 400 fewer houses using Acklington Road and the Masons Arms junction.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Sorry,
Thanks for
is
your
that 5 minutes up?
It is.
I
Thanks for
just
your
ask that you look,
Yeah.
consider the needs of the community and not the previous farm boundaries.
No, we're listening, sir, I promise. Thank you. I'd now like to ask Jack Oskerby to take the seat. And I think you're fine where you are. You've got 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today in support of the application. My name is Jack Oskerby from Pegasus Group, and I'm speaking on behalf of the applicant, Tantallon Homes, in relation to these proposals. Firstly, we would like to endorse the report prepared by your officers and the conclusions drawn that the Reserve Matters application should be granted. The applicant has worked closely with officers on this project to ensure that the proposals promote the key concepts of good design and sustainability. In this respect, we thank officers for proactively and positively engaging the applicant in relation to these proposals for the benefit of the scheme and Amble. As outlined in the officer's report, the principal development has already been established on the site by virtue of the outline plan and permission granted in March 2022. The outline application included details of the site access, which is approved and considered as the matters raised about highways impacts throughout the local highway network. It also assessed impacts on existing infrastructure within Amble, including impacts on health, education and sports provision. In this regard, the local planning authority found that the proposed development is acceptable in principle, subject to a series of planning obligations. Such obligations are secured through a Section 106 legal agreement, and this includes affordable housing on-site, which is proposed as part of this Reserve Matters application, as well as financial contributions for off-site sports provision, education and healthcare infrastructure, all within Amble. With the outline plan and permission granted and the Section 106 agreement secured, this application only considers matters relating to layout, appearance, scale and landscape. In providing these details, the applicant has fully taken into account the approach to the development agreed at the outline stage, as well as the relevant policies of the local plan. The result is a high-quality, attractive development that provides a wide variety of family homes and generous areas of a green open space. The site will be delivered by Tantallon Homes, a local Northumberland-based house builder who will have a focus on creating jobs during the construction period and creating high-quality places for people to live. In terms of design, the house sites have been designed specifically for the site, so it's a bespoke offering by a local architectural firm to ensure they're of a high quality appearance and create a new distinct identity for the development. Tantallon Homes have also taken a landscape-led approach for the site to ensure that the proposals sit comfortably within their surroundings and provide a strong sense of place. The impact on traffic and transport is noted, however, it has been assessed during the outline application stage and is not subject to this reserved matters. At the outline stage, this was assessed by the Council's Highways Development Management team, who considered that the development will not have a severe impact on highway safety or capacity at the site access or throughout Amble on the local highway network, and no objection was raised. As part of this reserved matters, the applicant has done all they can within the site to maximise the use of sustainable modes of transport by providing a 3-metre segregated foot and cycleway throughout the site, which leads to future off-site connections to the A1068 and throughout surrounding public rights-of-way to the east and west. There is also the provision of the bus stop at the site entrance on Acklington Road. This will all encourage sustainable travel and will help minimise movements by car. As established at the outline stage, the proposals continue to represent a positive addition to Amble, which will help the settlement achieve future sustainable growth. This will benefit the local economy in terms of job creation and increase expenditure in the area. So, to conclude, the proposals before you will provide a high quality and sustainable addition to Amble, which will generate notable benefits and help underpin the future success of the area. As such, we ask that this reserved matters is approved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to the section relating to questions to our planning officers. And from the chair, I would like to start off this afternoon. I just want to remind members that, today we are looking at appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. But as good planners, we'd not be doing our job if we weren't listening to the likes of Tom Lloyd this afternoon. And I know the local councillor, Councillor Jeff Watson, has concerns about access. Yes, this application did get permission a long time ago, and a lot has happened since then. Huge amount of house building, and we're also having the redevelopment of the school. So a lot is happening around. And first of all, I would just like to ask Michael Patrick, if he is still happy with the situation. Does he feel that we've done everything we can as regards highway safety? But secondly, I'd also like to ask Rob Murphin, Director of Planning, will the new Section 106 contribution systems, expected to be announced later this year, give us an opportunity for a highways contribution to assist with parking on the Acklington Road at the welfare site? So first of all, I'm going to ask Michael to confirm that he feels, all this development that's gone on, redevelopment of the school, Acklington Road is still going to be safe for the residents that live there and all the new people that are coming to live there. And secondly, asking Rob about the new Section 106 contribution system. Michael.
Hi. Yes, Chair. Whenever an application is looked into, transport assessments undertaken, and when those transport assessments are undertaken, we take into consideration all committed developments and any developments that we're aware of that may be coming ahead. And that was all undertaken in the outline application. And any subsequent applications that have come on board will have taken into account this application. So we're satisfied that it's satisfactory. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good because I do. I have got my ears open for Tom Lloyd because a lot is happening. It is.
Yeah, and also as part of the whole process, the Section 270 of the Highways Act, and there's works done on the existing highway, do have road safety audits undertaken. So and they're independent of the technical approval. So any highway safety issues will be raised, and the designers have got to address those and come up with solutions if there is a safety issue raised.
Right. So we've got an approval, and we're going to assess that road as it goes along. Thank you. And Rob?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, you're correct that government is proposing a replacement of the current Section 106 system. And so Section 106, as for clarity, are tied to individual schemes. Government are proposing a tariff-based system, which is where all forms of development of all scales pay a contribution into an infrastructure fund that the county council and the town council then will decide how it's spent. There is uncertainty about when the new system will come in, and it will require the laying of new regulations, but it's anticipated that that system could provide a pot of money where we could revisit areas that have seen growth levels that have led to pressures, where we could look at revisiting some of the issues you mentioned, say parking issues. I have to put the caveat on it, though, is that legislation has not been made yet, even though government have consulted on it as part of the Regeneration and Levelling Up bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Stewart, you've got a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I am pleased to see that the style of the dwellings are not just off the shelf, as we've seen so many times, including places like Amble. A question about the 8 times 1 bedroomed properties. What are they going to be? Because nationally, the guidance would be for older people who want to move into those, if it's a social rental, to have 2 bedrooms. And the other concern I've got, which I'll be asking if I need to at other meetings as well, would be about the younger disabled people as well. Are these appropriate for you? Any of these identified for younger people, and are they just put on the site as part of the whole huge development, or will there be something else in there to have them centrally located for the needs for people with disabilities? The next one is, I have read page 53, 7.52, in relation to broadband. I would hope that every developer these days is going to put fibre to the premise there. Likewise, we're looking at green methods of heating in the homes as well. So I know it is just at this stage, and those things will be worked out later. I just want to raise it now.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. In respect to the one-bed units, clearly the schedule accommodation there shows 8 one-bed units and 8 one-bed apartments. Clearly, some of those will be at ground level. There are also some bungalows on the site with 2 beds, so smaller. Some of the smaller units are bungalows. As mentioned in my presentation as well, the reasonable proportion of these dwellings have been brought forward with the up-to-date building regs, the M42 regs, which are all around accessibility in lifetime homes and being able to so having rooms on ground floor that can be used as bedrooms and so on and so forth. So that is being baked into this scheme. In terms of the specifics, I must admit I'm not entirely sure. But in terms of the broadband sustainable construction commitments there as well, yeah, that's something that the local plan asks for. If that information hasn't been provided up front, we will secure that by condition. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That should be getting done.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Hutchinson.
Chair, with respect, Councillor Ball's had a hand up for a long time. You've missed her, so I'll let her go first.
No, I've seen you first. I've got Councillor Ball down. She's in the queue.
Thank you. It seems very much as if we've got our hands tied with this one. There's a lot of concerns about highways still. There's bound to be, as it's been so long since the original application came in, and things have moved on a long way. Are you really sure that highways will be safe enough? As you know, we've got the architectural liaison officer from the police have serious concerns about it, as along with yourselves and also flooding. They have concerns about the SUDs, but that's been addressed seemingly. Are you sure that things are going to be acceptable? You need a crystal ball, I think, to do this.
Yeah, The impact on the highway network was under a transport assessment was undertaken, and at that time, when the assessment was undertaken, it was considered, and all the other developments were taken into consideration, and it was for 500 houses at that point. We've got less houses now, not many less, but there's fewer, and yeah, we've already assessed it as part of the outline application. There's nothing further to look at. It's been taken into consideration, it's been modelled, and it's all been taken into account of the movements and the impact it'll have of the trips generated onto the highway network.
Chair, can I
Of course.
Thanks, Chair. If I can make an additional point, yeah. Just to clarify one thing that Michael did say, is that this site has been subject to a process called a road safety audit. And what that is that's an independent process that looks at the design as it emerged and then the final design, and it makes any recommendations about any precise design details that need to be made. And we have to take due consideration of those findings of the road safety audit. So that's a double check, and that process has only been in, it's been in for a few years now, but that is something that we didn't used to use historically, but now is meant to give more assurance about road safety issues when we've got a permission that's been approved. Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, I hope you have got it right. Could I have another bite of the cherry, please?
Yes.
One thing is conditions. I note the conditions are very sparse. I presume that the serious conditions, you know, the ones like hours of working, if it's approved, hours of working, wheel washes, that kind of thing, are in the outline permission.
Yes.
Yeah, the substantive conditions are on the outline permission. There is a condition on here to secure construction method statements, so you know, items like your wheel washing and so on and so forth will be captured by that. But yeah, the two elements of the permission are read together, and all the conditions are.
Thanks. One final one, just for information: is there any time limit between receiving outline permission and going for detailed permission? You know, as in when you get a planning application is permitted, you've got 3 years to actually make the foundations. Is there any time limit between outline and a detailed application?
There is, yes. When outline application is approved, you have, is it 5 years, to submit reserved matters, so 3 years to submit reserved matters, and then 2 years from the date of the last reserved matters to commence on site. So it's a 5-year total period.
This one's within that time. Right, thank you.
Thank you. Question from Councillor Hill. Georgina Hill.
Thank you. My question is just around one of the main concerns expressed by objectors was around the infrastructure to support these houses. It's not an area I know very well, so I'd be keen to get some commentary on whether you think the infrastructure that exists in the area does support this, is a large housing development. And linked to that, the Section 106 agreement, which you've touched on before. You keep seeing with these applications, and I can't get my head around it, but there's another 200,000 for the Coastal Mitigation Service. This service seems to be getting more money than any other service in the county. I don't see people going around with high-vis vests, Coastal Mitigation Service working on the cliffs up and down the county, but I don't know, maybe they are. But in terms of education and health, I might have missed something, but if you could give a bit more comment about the specifics of this Section 106 as well.
Thanks, Councillor Hill. Yeah, see, the 106 was secured at outline stage and included a range of commitments towards infrastructure, particularly healthcare. Not actually sure on the education front. I would have to double check that, but yeah. So as ever, these are reactive services. So you know the way we develop in this country, we build 500 houses, we pull in contributions to put towards infrastructure like healthcare, like education, so on and so forth. So it's by permitting these houses to be built that we get the funds to be able to develop these services. You know, the healthcare, the Integrated Healthcare Board are consulted on the application. They put in a request for a certain amount of funding to go towards facilities within that local area. So that'll go towards GP surgeries in the Amble area, for example. In terms of education, same again. That would go towards the schools within that area.
Yeah. Can I just bookend this? Yeah. The new school in Amble is a reaction to the level of growth in Amble. In fact, this site is, as you'll see from the layout, is adjacent to the new school, which is being redeveloped. In terms of coastal mitigation, we talk about Section 106 securing developer contributions, and that's contributions to infrastructure. And by that, we mean schools, healthcare, open space, etc. We also use Section 106 to secure other things, like access agreements, say. The coastal mitigation isn't a contribution to infrastructure as such, but it's a requirement that we've negotiated with Natural England to allow residential permissions to be granted up and down the coast in the county. Otherwise, Natural England would require each scheme from one house up to 480 to address and resolve the impact of more growth on the protected coast and the bird populations there. So this is a process we do. On the website, if you Google it, and it's called Space for Shorebirds, on there's the list of all the schemes that are supported by this and how the funding is used to mitigate the impact of increase. Yeah, we've set up a service which implements events and works to coastal areas and wardens to protect sensitive bird areas from dog walking and things like that. So that's done up and down the coast. But what's probably useful, if you ever look online, and if you have any questions, come to me directly about it. Okay.
We actually have had a presentation on this at the Northern Lac, where they came along and told us some of the schemes they were carrying out.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, Georgina. Thank you. Councillor Ball, sorry you've had to wait such a long time.
It's quite okay, Chair. So, I understand we've got to look at the layout and stuff, but as part of that layout, highways is an issue. Every single one of them houses is going to have at least one car. Most people have two or more if they're going to be living in a 5-bedroomed house. So I just think the logistics of this site for that road, I can see the number of residents that are going to be on there coming back to a local area council, a petitions committee, a few years down the line, demanding access and around the highways issue. So I just think when we're looking at things like bin lorries on the site, every single one of them people needs to move in, and I'm assuming that they're going to have a truck to move in. How they're going to turn right out the site, it's going to cause problems for people that live on the site. Is there no way we can force a hand to look at that land ownership issue to get an extra access site? Because I do worry that it's going to end up coming back to the council to sort out this problem at a later date, and especially if you've got that other housing estate up and running, that road, and even just getting off the estate once it's built, I just think it's going to come back to haunt us, and it's going to come to a petitions committee, a local area council where we've got petitions off all of the local residents. And I just think logistically, and if some of these houses haven't got car parking, then you've got things like how's the ambulances going to get round, the fire service and stuff like that. So I think there is issues around the highways and that layout of the estate. So is there any way that we can push for something around this, because it's going to come back and haunt me at a later date? Thank you.
Chair?
Certainly.
Yeah. Yeah. The answer to that question really is that we explored these issues when we granted the outline. The assurance I can give you is that since that date, this scheme has been refined, and as John said, it was Active Travel England's first site they looked at since they were set up. So we've reflected their requirements in it. So compared with the evaluation we took a few years ago where we agreed it was acceptable, since then the pedestrian and cycle access has been improved. I know it's only a marginal decrease, but the developer has worked with us and they've not maxed out the possible number of houses on this site. They've allowed the design, a good design, to inform the number of houses. So there's plenty of space on there and there's plenty of access routes and pedestrian routes on there. I suppose in the interest of being impartial and fair on this, the developer went through this exercise before and then we agreed it was acceptable. We've improved it since then. So it would be unreasonable, I think, from a natural justice perspective to say, actually, we want to go back and unpick what we've agreed already with them. This isn't like, though, some of the historic sites we've seen in other parts of the county where we just plonk the houses down and pick up all the problems later on. This site has been looked at with all what we're talking about today in mind. And compared with some historic sites, it will be subject to what we call this road safety audit process, which looks at this. It is difficult. The final thing I'll say is, whenever you build anything, be it a school, homes, shops, or businesses, it will have an impact on the highway. The question we have to ask ourselves is, would that impact, as set out in the National Planning Policy Framework, be so adverse as to suggest a refusal on the basis of highway impact? And sometimes we do refuse them on that basis. This one's been assessed at great length. That's the assurance I can give you, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, it's a general question where I'm actually seeking information. I'm looking at the schedule of accommodation. It's been said by colleagues, Amble has become extremely popular. An award-winning high street. The hospitality trade in Amble is phenomenal. The amount of visitors is increased like people would never expect. So we need homes for many local residents. And traditionally, that tends to be younger people. So when I look at 167 4-bed, when I look at 49 5-bed, I'm thinking, they're maybe not the younger people I know. Could be wrong, of course. So my question is it possible, as time moves on, to address the demographics and the needs of Amble and surrounding areas, the types of houses can be altered? And does it have to come back to the committee for those alterations to be made? So, although when we pass this today or knock it back, do we accept that that will be the number of houses and types of houses that are built, or can that be altered? That's my question. To meet the demographic needs of residents and local people.
Chair, can I answer this, mate?
Yes, of course.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah. When you look at the details of what's proposed here, it's a response to the strategic analysis of housing need in the county. Okay, so that's both numerically what we can achieve, which is the 15%. That gives you the 72 units on site. But also, though, at the strategic dimension, there's a split between affordable purchase and affordable rent. And given the demography in the area, that's why you see a heavy skewing to affordable rent here. If this was a different part of the county, that skewing could be different. Okay, so you've got the overall number of affordable housing, the mix between rented and affordable purchase, and then you've got the mix in terms of the sizes of the properties. And all those are based on what's been agreed with our housing needs team to actually being a fit at the moment and addressing needs. Right. Any developer can come forward with what's called a Section 73 application to vary the details. And actually, sometimes housing sites take several years to build out and market conditions change, so they could find a greater need, say, for smaller or large properties. But actually, what we would not agree to is any reduction in the overall percentage of affordable housing. Okay. The one thing to note, and this comes up frequently, and in fact I've answered an email to a member in this room today about this, we have not actually agreed who will be managing the affordable rent property, and that would either be an RP or it could be the county council, but that is something for subsequent negotiation. Okay. Just to make it clear, we can't stop developers putting in further applications, but the percentage of affordable housing is a policy requirement. Okay, and that's been tested at viability at plan level, so we wouldn't vary from that. Okay.
Thank you. Good answer. Councillor Flux.
Yeah. Go straight to a question. This is a reserved matters application, I understand. Could you outline to the committee what that means and what we should be deciding this application upon?
Right. You can make two types of applications. You can do full application. Well, you can actually do three types of applications. You can do full applications, hybrid applications, or outline applications. You use an outline application basically to say, is yes or no the principle of residential development on this site acceptable? Okay. And sometimes you can just ask that very basic question, then all the detail has to come later. This outline application asked that question, but also it included certain amounts of detail, including, and this is the key issue, it included the access arrangement to it. Okay? So what we're faced today is, given this site's got outline permission, they've got that, for 500 homes using the access, or single point access, the question facing members, is their fleshing out of the details acceptable? So in essence, that's reducing the number slightly, it's improving the amount of open space on the site, it's the design details of the houses, it's the mix of houses, and it's the fact how they've met the affordable housing target. Okay, so what the report says in essence is that this scheme meets all the new policy requirements in place, and the bit for you to decide is that complete package adding up to something that you are happy to agree to, with the very clear caveat that we are not here today to talk about the acceptability or otherwise of the actual access to the site.
Okay, I'm just asking for clarity on that because several members have asked questions about the highways issue, and although it seems very nice to be able to speak about that stuff and to say that we've got concerns, that doesn't actually appear to be what we're here to do today. And I'm just concerned that we don't confuse ourselves as a committee as to what our purpose is in terms of coming to a decision today. That's just what I want to ask for clarity on.
You know, Councillor Flux, at the beginning of this meeting, I outlined the things that we were looking at today. The reserve matters, appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. They're the things that we're debating this afternoon. But on top of that, you know, I do take on board that councillors like Councillor Ball, Councillor Hutchinson, Councillor Watson, they've got great concerns about the access, because when we decided these things, it was a long time ago. And as good councillors, they're just putting their finger up in the air and saying, are we absolutely sure? So as a good chairman, I'm listening to them as well, because, you know, what we want from our highways guy is that reassurance today. And I think we've got it. I think we have. But, you know, that's what I'm doing as a good chairman. I haven't got my ears shut. I'm listening to the councillors. I'm listening to our objector. So while the main business are those things, I'm also listening to the concerns that my members of the Strategic Planning Committee have got, and I'm taking those on board. I am.
Chair, can I make a more overt request and put it slightly more formally, that members should be considering this entire scheme and place-making issues, but you should assign no weight, either positive or negative, to what you think about the main single access point in you coming to your decision as to whether this is acceptable or not.
Indeed. No, I'm fully behind that. And the next question from Councillor Lyle. Yeah, he's on our list too.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a question. Hopefully, I think it's Section 38 agreement for highways. I have a development in my area where the roads, the pathways were not adopted, and that's created some problems there. This is a very large scheme. What is the process for adoption of the highways on there? And is this, I understand it's an agreement between the developer and yourselves, but the developer doesn't have to go into that agreement. If they don't do that, it creates problems for residents on site, and sometimes residents don't find out that until they bought the house, which is a bit cheeky. I don't know what the process is for this one, but could you answer the question, is this going through that agreement, and will the roads be adopted by the council?
Yeah, I can answer that question. I think I know the particular development you're referring to. The applicant on this development has decided that they're going to maintain the roads and become the roads manager effectively of the roads within the development. There's no way we can actually force them to have the roads adopted. If they want to have a management company run the roads within the site, they can do. If at a later stage they want to present them to come forward for adoption, then we have mechanisms in place to ensure that the authority is protected from the workmanship and ensure that all the legal things are undertaken properly. So at this moment in time, the applicant is proposing to operate them via a management company.
Can I just come back on that? It is a question, and thank you for that as well. I do think it's prudent on the developer to make sure that that is disseminated to the residents accurately, because that is quite a big expense for some residents, and not all people who buy the houses are aware of that, and that has fell foul to some people before. So I think I ask the developer to take that on board and think about that again. I don't know the pros and cons of not doing that. I don't know why you wouldn't do that. That's up to the developer.
Yeah, there is DFT guidance that was produced in, a technical note was produced in 2017, and it was updated again in 2022. And that guidance does give guidance towards a developer, ourselves as Highways Authority, and sets out the whole process and the different ways that roads can be adopted or remain private. And in that, it actually sets out with regards to the residents how they should be notified that from day one, when they look to purchase the property, that it's going to be on a management company. Our searches team will, when a searches comes through with regards to an actual somebody purchasing the property, we will declare whether it's going to be private or whether there's a legal agreement in to potentially adopt it, or whether there isn't.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Malcolm Robinson. Question, sir?
Thank you, Chair. I've got 3 or 4 that, first of all, the coastal mitigation scheme, I have asked to come here for a presentation. The 106, I'm here, I'm there, there's quite large numbers all over the place. It would be much handier if it was in one paragraph, the 106 contributions. Much easier to read, much easier to understand. A question for Rob there, these 72 affordable homes, similar question to Councillor Wallace actually. Who decides what sort of homes those affordable homes are? You know, with 8 one-bedroom, 39 two, etc., who decides that? Is it something we're given, or is it something we ask for?
Yeah, it's a mixture of the two. It's a process of negotiation on all schemes like this, where we use the latest housing needs information we have, and that influences the precise mix of house sizes and types on the site. But the overall proportion breakdown between rented and affordable rent and affordable purchase is primarily driven by the local plan, which for this area says there should be a dominance of affordable rented properties.
Right. So it's gone through a consultation.
Yeah, and the mix is tied. And the mix is tied to how housing need work, and housing need work for affordable rent, for example, reflects the pattern of requests we've had historically in an area, you know, via Home Finder and things like that.
I'm just pleased there's some
That's a good
evidence
question.
behind it, you know. John, I noticed some new opportunities for pedestrian cycle connections have been outlined. Will these carry, like a public right of way, protection on them?
I mean, that would be a process that would need to be arranged with the public rights of way team with, through highways. Certainly initially, I don't think they would. You know, you're looking at putting in a footpath that happens to be 3 metres wide, could be used by, you know, multiple different, you know, types of, you know, either pedestrians or, you know, bicycles, etc. I don't know what the process would be. If,
I'm more concerned with maintenance of it.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it'll be put in, I've no doubt, it'll be nice and pretty, it'll look nice, etc. But who's going to maintain it? Who's going to make sure in 10 years' time that's still suitable for what it was?
Well, this comes back to the maintenance of the highways within the site as well, so it would be part of that package. If it goes forward under a management company, they would be responsible for the maintenance of footpath cycleways as well as the carriageways.
Okay, my last question, if I may, Chair. Michael, I realise we can't talk about the road outside. I think it's a racing certainty. It's going to be, it'll vie Coupon Road for the biggest car park we've got in the county. On the map you had, I presume it's the entrance is a smaller rectangle, if you like, on the left-hand side of the map. Because, you know, 500 houses, I live in the estate, I live right at the entrance of an estate with 500 houses getting built out. They tend to start at the road and they sell them. And I know from first-hand experience the problems I've had with constructive method statements, getting them to be applied. You know, I've got enforcement on speed dial for my estate. It's just ridiculous. So I hope we have a robust construction method statement, agreed by all parties, in place straight away, because that's been a problem. But if the whole, you know, the bulk of the estate is coming through a small section, can we not find another route in for construction traffic? It's going to be bedlam there, I think. That's inside the site, so I'm not talking about outside the site.
Yeah, there is a condition on the outline application for the submission of a construction management plan. I believe that's currently going through the discharge of conditions and hasn't been approved as of yet, so it still hasn't been outlined. But yeah, we will do our utmost to ensure that a proper plan. And once the construction method plan's put in place, it's a live document, so we will be monitoring it as in go along.
So would that potentially include an alternative route for the commercial traffic?
Could potentially provide a temporary access.
Yeah.
Whether one of the side cul-de-sacs at the entrance, whether they use that bit to allow everybody the works traffic. We've got other sites where we've actually had a different haul road in, so the residents were segregated from the actual works traffic.
Yeah.
So that's something we can look into and addressing that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. 3 questions which I think haven't been touched on yet. When I read the reports from the local lead flood authority, obviously they've signed off on it, and that's good. But when it talks about using pumps being the last resort for a SUD scheme, sort of red flags start to go up. And I see that it was quite recently that they dropped those red flags. So, as I understand it, there'll be pumps which will take away water out of the SUDs in exceptional circumstances. And should they fail, the water will find its own way out of the SUDs without flooding the properties. Could you just talk me through that, please?
Yeah. So the drainage system is gravity fed into the SUDs. It's gravity fed into the SUDs, into the swales, down at the low point of the site of the SUDs pond. So they were happy with that element of the proposals. The issue obviously is with the pumping up a metre or whatever it is to get up to the outfall and into the watercourse. The applicant has provided overland flow mapping to show that the water is all basically heading in that direction. Anyway, my understanding is that should those pumps fail, the head wall of the suds basically will take the water in that direction anyway, and yeah, out of the site down the watercourse.
Okay, thank you. So it's a fail-safe system, effectively. So if power goes off, it still works.
Said in my presentation, Councillor, yes, there is an element of risk involved. It should be negligible. Having a situation where both pumps fail during the level of rainfall event that would actually trigger that scenario. But yeah, so yes, there is an element of risk there. That risk needs to be balanced against the alternative, which was having 52,000 trucks coming onto the site to regrade the entire site, to allow for a fully gravity-fed system. And yeah, it's in our opinion that it's acceptable on balance.
Okay, thank you. I'm sort of reading that it's to do with flow rate is the fact the pumps are there rather than actual flow itself. Second question was regard to the bus stop. Now, I assume there's a bus stop on Acklington Road. It's quite a long, deep site. Is there a bus stop within the site? Because it'd be quite a trek from in the site to out of the site. I'm just wondering for those who aren't as fleet as foot as some of us, is there a bus stop inside the site at all?
I don't believe so, no.
Could I just come in here, Chair, if that's okay?
Yes.
The issue is not just one of agreeing for bus stops to be put up. It's agreeing with bus operators they'll be used. And bus operators, because they have agreed routes which are done on an efficient basis, do not like going off main route around housing estates because it delays the overall journey time. So a balance is struck. If there was a very, very large area of housing, say if we're looking at major urban extensions, that can work. But on this one, well, I can't put the words into the mouths of the bus operators. I would feel it'd be highly unlikely that they would agree to use a loop route into a housing estate of this size. So it's a case of putting the bus stop at the closest point on the main route where there is a viable bus route already.
Okay, thank you. I was thinking more of a town service kind of bus service rather than the sort of main through bus routes. Yeah. And the last question is, I know that it's next to the school and there's some play facilities on that kind of site. Are there any play facilities, particularly for younger children, within this site? Obviously, it's a big site, there'll be a lot of children living here.
Good question. The 106 agreement secured through the outline permission does cover sport and play. So whether, top of my head, whether they've actually included any any play equipment within the site, I'm not too sure. But certainly there's sufficient space within the site that could potentially be used for that.
Is that something we could secure by condition?
We could put a condition on certain details to be submitted, showing how, and if not, why not. Yeah. No, you can't.
You can't.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. What we'll do, Chair, with due all respect, is we'll go back through all the different outline permissions and provisions, double check it, and maybe we have a condition on saying to explore this issue, but it might not be necessary. I would suggest that prior to commencement of construction on the site, that details be provided of on-site children's play equipment, or if not, or an explanation to why such is not required in this instance. Something along those lines.
Yeah, sorry, if I may, Michael's just flagged it up, and I'm getting nods from Jack as well. There is an annotation on the proposed plan saying large open area for informal play enhanced by landscape feature. To be turfed also features waves of appropriate timber play items, play boulders, seating, etc., etc.
Okay,
so yeah, there is provision. Apologies for that.
Yeah, it's not necessary. No, we don't need it then.
Thank you. Any more questions from members of the committee? Councillor Reid.
Thanks, Chair. Where to start? 2.6 on page 40. I'm glad to see that for once somebody has thought there's going to be a lot of cars. Usually we're struggling, but there seems to me to be quite a lot of places to park cars, which is good. But I was just wondering about the communal cycle storage. You know, who's going to be responsible for maintaining that? I'm not, and I realise this isn't a planning thing, so I'll not say it. But have you got any idea how long this site is actually going to be active? If a house builder sells 100 houses a year, they're doing well. So there could be, to follow on from what my colleague said, the people at the front of that site might have construction or some kind of disruption for 5 or 6 years before the thing's built out. So I don't know whether you care to comment on that or not. What I didn't see when I read all of this, and if they're there, I apologise, I don't see any trigger points. So X number of houses built, this will happen. That's usually what happens. And if you remember, there's a thing going on in Cramlington at the moment where we fell over because it says when X number of houses are built, then this footpath will be put in. And it actually needs to be built now when they haven't hit the trigger point. So I haven't seen any trigger points here at all. So if I could have some, if anybody's wondering what I'm talking about, it's like you build 20 houses, well, you have to give, 106, 5% or something. I don't see any of that in here.
From the chair, can I just say there is a trigger point there on the NHS. It's a single payment of 3,600, sorry, 63, and that amount is to be paid on the completion of the first dwelling to ensure that that held capacity in the surgery is there for the residents.
So I missed that one, but there isn't anything about the cycle path needs to be complete. La-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da. And as far as the layout's concerned, I just wish that we'd maybe thought ahead that at some point perhaps we are going to do something at our bottom end, have another access. Perhaps they can all come to an agreement and build that roundabout. I would hope that the thing could be orientated in such a way that if that ever does happen, then the land is available. And I don't see that. I'd rather shift the Suds Pond. And the other thing, the Suds Pond, have we got any kind of... I just never like putting kids' play areas next to water. So I would hope in the plan somewhere we've got kind of some barrier or some ramp or something, because it's just, you know, asking for trouble. And I have tried to keep my questions to the layout of the thing rather than some of the other things that I could go on. So, is there some way the thing can be orientated, the kids' play area can be orientated to increase the safety and keep them away from the suds ponds? The trigger points, I was particularly thinking about the footpaths and the cycle paths rather than the NHS and the schools and the coastal mitigation stuff. It's the physical things that I'm worried about. And there's also this communal cycle storage. You know, that in the long run, it would appear to me that the management company is how the builder is going to control the site, which is fair enough. But ultimately, when they've built their 480 houses, that management company is going to belong to the people who own the houses. And I don't know how happy I would be. And I'm really sorry, again, we stray in areas we shouldn't be talking about. But so if I could have, you know, I would like some reassurance that the council aren't going to end up trying to look after a communal cycle storage, which will inevitably turn into a magnet for, you know, if it's raining and the teenage kids are out on the estate, they're going to stand under the thing so they don't get wet. I just, you know, can we just think about these things? And of course, the last thing is, do we have a tree planting strategy?
Yeah.
Because, as ever, we do not want in 50 years' time our predecessors, or some people still might be here in 50 years' time, but we don't want to be people complaining about massive trees in front of our houses. So whatever we're planting, can we make sure they're appropriate for the place they're being put?
Okay, right.
Have you got all that?
I've got all that, Jim. I've got all that. Okay. First of all, the original Section 106 agreements includes trigger points for the normal issue, which is like how you build out issues like affordable housing, etc. Where there is no trigger measure, then the developer needs to implement the approved plans. And if they chose not to implement the bits that were least profitable to them, then we could take action against that. Okay, because trigger points are put in as well to help developers with their cash flow. Yeah, okay, right. So this is a scheme which includes all the elements and is enforceable. Okay, right. In terms of your comment about trees, which is a comment, you know, which is a concern you bring up at many meetings, this one has got the new style condition on, which makes provision for both an appropriate type of tree for the location. Because in the past we used to just express the requirement for native species. Now it's appropriate native species. Okay.
Could I just ask you, who is the arbiter of that? So I think we should be planting a Scotch pine there, and somebody else says we should be planting a larch there. So who actually did, you know, who gets the final say about what tree goes where?
Yeah, that would be our ecology team who look at an appropriate tree, because we want as well the trees to be successful. And clearly, if you wanted, for example, if you wanted maximum benefit for ecology, you may say you want, say, horse chestnut there, but they grow too large. So you look at the appropriate species. You mentioned about the cycle storage. All the infrastructure on the site that came out of the active travel requirement in terms of footpaths, cycle paths, etc., is maintainable under the management company. The one thing that we haven't perhaps said explicitly enough is that the highways will be designed. We've got a commitment from the developer to an adoptable standard. In other words, they will be built where, if in the future years it became appropriate by agreement for the county council to become managers of the highway network, with that comes inspection and maintenance obligations, that would be possible here. The alternative is sometimes, particularly on some historic layouts, the actual widths of the roads outside private curtilages are not wide enough to achieve adoptable standard, whereas this has been designed so that option is open. But I need to make the point that Michael made, is that the developer is perfectly entitled to use a management company rather than go for formal adoption, and that is written in the regulations. So that in itself is not something we can, weigh against them on this. Okay.
Thank you. Are you content, Councillor Reid?
Well, the last thing about designing in such a way that in the future you could have an exit at the other end, you haven't really touched on that.
Yeah. When you look at the layout of the site, the main area of green open space is at one end of the site, which includes the sort spots and other spaces. It is not inconceivable that you could design a retrofit route through there. It's just at the moment we can't compel that provision to be in place. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Any more questions, ladies and gentlemen? No more questions? Could I have a proposal? Councillor Flux.
Move approval in line with the recommendation.
Thank you very much. Is that seconded? Councillor Hutchinson?
I'll second that. As I said before, our hands are tied with this one. It's already got that expected. This is just dotting the T's, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. What I'd like the officers to take in real consideration is what Councillor Robinson said regarding the entrance to the site and construction. Yeah. I think I've never really thought about that, Malcolm, but it's got to be a real mess. I remember going on the site visit near your place, and the mess there was at that entrance was horrific. And to put up with something like that for 5 years. But I will second the proposal.
Just from the chair, I want to say it's been moved, it's been seconded. It is a very large application, and I think it's quite right and proper that as good planners, we have, concerns about this application because it is very big. And naturally, as good planners, we're going to think about how people get in and get out of this estate. So, I commend the detailed questions this afternoon, and I think they're right and they're proper. Councillor Dodd.
I presume we're now in debate.
We are, sir.
I remember this when it went through the local plan. I think you were on the local LDF, as it was then called. And we all had concerns about the number of houses for Amble. This is part of 1,300. And there was concern, is there a limit? And there's no upper limit on numbers. However, I did bring up at the time the very fact there was a relatively newish roundabout that could have linked into all of these developments. And it's a crying shame that we've been unable, or someone has been unable to do so, because I feel sorry for whoever is the councillor for here in years to come when they get going, because if you've had a large development in your area, this is just the start, because the petitions, when people move in, like Malcolm's moved in on his, the petitions will start about a bus route, they'll start about a pedestrian crossing, they'll start about a footpath, everything that, and we are told this is the time that we are supposed to get involved. Well, the time to get involved was the LDF, really, and whatever we suggested there has not been listened to, or on highways it's not important enough. There is a way of saying, no, you can't have that development until you've got a real proper entrance, because I can see, anyone can, we've seen the room today say that there's problems. There's nothing I or anybody else can do about it, but there was an opportunity missed to fix a problem that we can see coming down the line.
And unfortunately, because we can't do that, and the traffic will get so bad, 500 houses is a lot of houses, it will be problematic in years to come. But, you know, we are where we are, as it's often said, and there's nothing I can do to stop this, and I wouldn't want to, but because it's in the plan. But I think we missed a trick.
Thank you, Councillor Dodd. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. I support this application. There are some details to be thrashed out and things to keep an eye on, as has been discussed at length, but it's more houses which are obviously needed in a suitable spot. And just to make a couple of general points quickly on that, not specifically relating to the decision itself, but I totally agree with Malcolm, this coastal mitigation, it keeps coming up, and I couldn't explain it to a resident exactly what it is. I know it doesn't come up to Berwick, it doesn't benefit Berwick, which is on the coast. So there's a few oddities around it, and I think we need to satisfy ourselves what it's all about. So I'd back Malcolm on that, having a presentation here or an all-member briefing or whatever. I think that needing to happen. And the other thing, it's really welcome. It almost seems a slight contradiction to have such a large development done by a small housing company rather than one of the usual suspects. And I use the word suspect sometimes with that. But that's really welcome. And you know, if they do good quality houses, then they should be encouraged rather than some of the usual suspects. So, yeah, I was supporting that.
Councillor Reid.
Yeah, sorry, the other thing I meant to mention before was doesn't seem to be any provision for electric charging points. I realise some of the houses might have them, but that might have been something we should have been thinking about in some of the visitor spaces. But I'm glad to see there's sort of over 1,300 places to park your car, which is I think is good, because regardless of how we feel about public transport and, you know, car use and all the rest of that stuff, it's how people live. People want to drive. People want to own cars. People want to, you know, drive down to the shops. They don't want to walk. So I share everyone's concern, and I do believe this is just storing up trouble for the future. Bear in mind that if this site is going to be going as long as I think it is, it's six years maybe, you know. And if there's a housing slowdown, you know, if the Labour Party can't get the economy turned around, then, you know, it could be another 5 years of the Tories will not be building any houses at all. So it could be 20 years before this gets finished.
We'll build a fence for you.
But anyway, Richard, I don't think I'm sitting on the fence at the moment. So what I would say is that, you know, it is what it is now. We've agreed the scheme. I think everybody's heard our concerns, which are common amongst us all. I just hope that it's not going to take as long as I think it's going to take, and we can get the other access, and, you know, the management thing can be sorted, because they're nice houses and they'll provide good homes, and it'll be a nice estate for people to live on. People will be proud to say this is where I come from, and just wish we could, you know, help it along the way.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Any more contributions from members? You'd like to conclude the debate, Councillor Flux? Oh, sorry, Malcolm.
Chair, just, you know, I live on an estate one way in, one way out for just under 500 houses. I can visualise the problems that this is going to bring, especially the member responsible for it in the future. However, it is manageable with the right conditions in place and enforcing those conditions, mind. It's taken me 3 years, but I've now got residents meeting with the developers on a semi-regular basis. We can thrash the problems out. Things can happen. It can be changed. So, yes, I can see problems, but there is ways to solve them. What I'm disappointed is in the Suds Pond overflow, I'd love to see a solar-powered Archimedes screw to empty it. You know, thinking outside the box a little bit. I'm very pleased it's a small-scale builder, local builder, building these out. I think, in reality, it's probably going to take them longer than a national house builder to build out. So it's not going to be 5 years, it's probably going to be 7 or 8 years. But let's support our builders as well. So I'll be voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ball.
Just quickly, so I'm going to be voting against it. The housing design, like it, like the layout of the overall, just the layout of the site. I think it's good overall, but I just think whether we like it or not, people have to live on this site, and the reality is every single one of the cars, if every single one of them houses has to go one access point. So once you've gotten past the construction stage, you're still going to have over 1,000 cars daily needing to get out on that road. And that is right on people's doorsteps where the queues are going to be, and we are kicking the ball down the road because it's coming back, it's coming through local area councils, it's coming to petitions committee. So as much as I welcome the design and everything else, I just think, I want it on record that I think we should have addressed this issue for that estate. And I know what you're going to say, but I really strongly believe that I want to vote against it, so I blooming well will.
Rob Murphy would like a word.
Yeah. I do need to just set out one point of logic really here, in that I can understand your concerns, and clearly members have articulated those concerns really clearly, and the member of the public has mentioned the point. But you are talking about an issue we are not here to decide. So you are basing your reason for your weighting as to the positives and the negatives on what for this application is a non-material issue. Which means that it's the same as, say, basing it on another issue, which is non-material, which we've been through on training, you know, and I won't make any fatuous examples of things, other things you could be basing it on, but it's a point of logic, really, that, could I advise, if through the chair, yes, that you abstain rather than vote on that basis, because it does open the authority up to an awkward position, okay? Thank you, with all due respect. That's my advice to you. Yeah.
Councillor Flux.
Thank you. I probably know more than anyone about issues with development, given the scale of development in my ward, which is now excluding Councillor Swinbank's 2-member ward, the biggest ward in the county, and eventually will be an even bigger ward than Alnwick is population-wise. And so I understand all this stuff about petitions committees, and I understand all this stuff about having to do stuff retrospectively, and I have the greatest deal of sympathy for people living in those conditions, and for us as councillors and us as a local authority. However, in respect to this application, the battle for that was a different day. It wasn't today, it wasn't this application, it was at a previous application stage, it was at the LDF stage. And I sadly have to say that I don't think it's right that we give the misrepresentation that today could have been a day where we sorted that out. Because it couldn't be. It's not what we're here to do today. And we could all sit here and, you know, in the land of motherhood and apple pie and say, well, I don't like the application per se, I'll vote against it. But if we all did that, and we lost today, and we did it on application after application, we'd be losing this authority millions of pounds. And that's millions of pounds that would be going to some of the most vulnerable people in this county, which would be spending on this. And I don't find it very funny, I don't find it worth smirking about, that we would lose. Because if we were losing applications, we would be losing this authority money, we wouldn't be able to spend it on other things, and it just wouldn't be right. So as I say, I've got all the sympathy. I've got sympathy with the gentleman who's attended today. I've got sympathy with the ward member. But today wasn't that battle. It was about landscaping. It was about appearance. And people have said that they like the landscaping and appearance, and then were suggesting they're not going to vote for it. So in terms of the landscaping and in terms of the appearance, I haven't got an issue. I've got issues with other things, but they aren't for this today. They're for other ways of sorting out and previous debates and previous battles. So I'll be supporting this application today, Chair.
Thank you. Right, ladies and gentlemen of the committee, it's been moved and seconded. We've got a reserved matters application here for 4 things: appearance, landscape, layout and scale for 480 dwellings south and southeast of the James Calvert Spence College in Amble. All those in favour of that recommendation? Yes, any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That brings the determination of the planning applications to a conclusion. We have an appeals update, a Section 106 update report for information, and I have no urgent business.